Marcus Thompson had always been smaller than most guys his age. At 22, standing barely 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighing only 140 pounds, he looked more like a college student than someone who belonged among the elite warriors of the Navy SEALs. His baby face and quiet demeanor made him an easy target for doubt, especially when he walked into the Advanced Tactical Training Facility at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado, California. The morning sun cast long shadows across the training compound as Marcus reported for his first day with SEAL Team 7. He had completed BUD-S training 6 months earlier, graduating in the top 10% of his class. But that felt like a lifetime ago. Now he was about to face the real test, proving himself worthy of wearing the trident among operators who had already earned their place through blood, sweat, and combat experience. Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, a barrel-chested man with 20 years of service and arms covered in tattoos that told stories of deployments across 3 continents, looked Marcus up and down with barely concealed skepticism. The chief had seen plenty of young SEALs come and go, and something about this kid's appearance didn't inspire confidence. Marcus could feel the weight of that stare, along with the curious glances from the other team members who were preparing their gear nearby. The team was scheduled to deploy to Afghanistan in 8 weeks, and every member needed to prove they could handle the intense pressure and physical demands of special operations. Rodriguez had a reputation for being tough but fair, though his definition of tough often left new guys questioning their life choices. He believed that combat would reveal a man's true character faster than any training exercise. But since they couldn't throw Marcus into a firefight on his first day, he would have to create the next best thing. During the morning briefing, Rodriguez outlined an intensive evaluation period that would determine whether Marcus had what it took to deploy with the team. The other 5 SEALs in the room, Johnson, Martinez, Patterson, Williams, and Chen, listened quietly as the chief explained that the new guy would face a series of increasingly difficult challenges over the next 2 weeks. These weren't standard training exercises. They were designed to push a man beyond his limits and reveal what lay beneath the surface. The first challenge came that very afternoon. Rodriguez led the team to a section of the beach where the Pacific Ocean crashed against jagged rocks, creating a natural obstacle course that had humbled many experienced operators. The water temperature hovered around 58 degrees, cold enough to sap strength and cloud judgment within minutes. Marcus was instructed to complete a 2-mile ocean swim while carrying a 40-pound pack, navigate through a maze of underwater obstacles, and then scale a 30-foot cliff face, using only a rope and his own strength. As Marcus stripped down to his wetsuit, he could hear whispered conversations among the team members. Johnson, a tall Texan with a dry sense of humor, made a comment about hoping the kid could at least float. Martinez, whose family had immigrated from El Salvador when he was young, shook his head and muttered something in Spanish that didn't sound encouraging. The doubt in their voices was unmistakable. And Marcus knew he was fighting an uphill battle before he even touched the water. The ocean was unforgiving that day. 20-foot swells rolled in from a storm system hundreds of miles offshore, turning what should have been a challenging but manageable swim into a test of pure survival. Marcus plunged into the churning water and immediately felt the cold shock hit his system like a sledgehammer. The 40-pound pack on his back seemed to gain weight with each stroke, and the underwater obstacles, concrete blocks and steel beams, arranged to simulate a demolished bridge, appeared and disappeared in the murky water like ghosts. Halfway through the swim, Marcus felt his strength beginning to fade. His shoulders burned with the effort of pulling himself and the heavy pack through the water, and his legs were starting to cramp from fighting the current. For a moment, doubt crept into his mind. Maybe the others were right. Maybe he didn't belong here. Maybe his size and appearance were accurate indicators of his limitations. But then something shifted inside him. Marcus remembered why he had joined the Navy in the first place, why he had endured the hell of BUD-S training, why he had dreamed of becoming a SEAL since he was 12 years old, watching a documentary about Special Operations Forces. This wasn't about proving himself to Rodriguez or the other team members. This was about proving to himself that heart mattered more than height, that determination could overcome disadvantage. He completed the swim in record time, his lungs burning and his muscles screaming in protest. The underwater obstacles that had seemed impossible in the churning water became manageable when he stopped fighting them and started thinking his way through them. When he reached the base of the cliff, his hands were numb from the cold, but he gripped the rope with a determination that surprised even him. Hand over hand, foot by foot, he climbed toward the top while the other seals watched from below. When Marcus hauled himself over the edge of the cliff, soaked and shivering but victorious, he looked down to see something he hadn't expected. The skeptical expressions on his teammates' faces had been replaced by something else. Not quite respect yet, but definitely interest. He had passed the first test, but Rodriguez was just getting started. The following days brought a series of challenges that seemed designed to exploit every possible weakness. There were long-distance runs through the desert carrying increasingly heavy loads, precision shooting exercises that demanded perfection under extreme stress, and hand-to-hand combat training against opponents who outweighed Marcus by 50 pounds or more. Each challenge pushed him closer to his breaking point. And each time, he found a way to push through. During a particularly brutal exercise that involved carrying a wounded teammate simulation, a 200-pound dummy, across 5 miles of rough terrain, Marcus collapsed twice. The first time, Rodriguez offered him a chance to quit, explaining that there was no shame in recognizing one's limitations. Marcus struggled to his feet, adjusted his grip on the dummy, and kept moving. The second time he went down, his legs simply gave out from exhaustion and dehydration. This time, none of the other team members said a word. They just watched as he lay in the dirt, breathing heavily and staring up at the cloudless sky. What happened next would become the stuff of legend within SEAL Team 7. Marcus didn't ask for help, didn't make excuses, and didn't complain about the impossibility of the task. Instead, he rolled onto his side, then onto his hands and knees, and somehow found the strength to lift that 200-pound burden one more time. His face was pale and his hands were shaking, but his eyes held a fire that none of them had seen before. He finished that exercise 43 minutes past the time limit, arriving at the checkpoint long after the others had given up watching for him. Rodriguez was waiting there alone, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Marcus dropped the dummy, stood at attention despite his trembling legs, and waited for the chief's verdict. Instead of criticism or dismissal, Rodriguez simply nodded once and walked away without saying a word. That night, as Marcus lay in his bunk, barely able to move from exhaustion, he overheard a conversation that changed everything. Johnson was talking to Martinez in the hallway outside the barracks, their voices carrying through the thin walls. The Texan was describing what he had witnessed during the dummy carry exercise. How Marcus had somehow found reserves of strength that defied logic and anatomy. Martinez replied that he had never seen anything like it in 15 years of military service. The real turning point came during the final challenge of Rodriguez's evaluation period. The chief had arranged for a simulated prisoner rescue mission that would test everything Marcus had learned and force him to work closely with the other team members. The scenario involved infiltrating a mock enemy compound, locating and extracting a high-value target, and exfiltrating under heavy, simulated fire. It was the kind of complex operation that required perfect coordination, split-second decision-making, and absolute trust among team members. Marcus was assigned the role of point man, responsible for leading the team through the initial breach and clearing the path to the target. It was a position typically reserved for the most experienced operators, and everyone knew that Rodriguez was setting the kid up for either spectacular success or devastating failure. There would be no middle ground in this exercise. As the team prepared for the mission that evening, Marcus noticed something different in the way his teammates interacted with him. The casual dismissal and barely hidden skepticism had been replaced by something else. Not quite acceptance, but definitely curiosity about what this small, quiet young man might be capable of when everything was on the line. The simulated compound sprawled across 3 acres of desert training ground, complete with multiple buildings, guard towers, and realistic obstacles designed to test every aspect of special operations warfare. As darkness fell over the California landscape, Marcus and his 5 teammates gathered around a sand table model of their target. Studying the layout one final time, Chief Rodriguez had made it clear that this exercise would determine whether Marcus deployed with the team or spent another 6 months in additional training. The mission parameters were straightforward but demanding. Intelligence indicated that a high-value target was being held in the central building of the compound, guarded by an unknown number of hostile forces, equipped with night vision and advanced weapons. The team had 30 minutes to infiltrate, locate the target, and extract without casualties. Live ammunition was replaced with training rounds, but the stress and consequences were very real. Marcus felt the weight of expectation as he checked his equipment one final time. His modified M4 rifle felt familiar in his hands. Each piece of gear had been positioned exactly where muscle memory expected to find it, and his night vision goggles revealed the world in sharp, green detail. Around him, Johnson, Martinez, Patterson, Williams, and Chen made their own final preparations with the practiced efficiency of men who had done this hundreds of times before. The insertion went flawlessly. Moving like shadows across the open ground, the 6 SEALs approached the compound perimeter without triggering any of the motion sensors or alerting the role-playing guards. Marcus led them through a gap in the fence that intelligence had identified, his smaller frame allowing him to slip through spaces that would have challenged his larger teammates. Once inside, he used hand signals to direct the team toward their first objective, neutralizing the guard towers that overlooked the central courtyard. What happened during the next 27 minutes would be talked about in SEAL training facilities for years to come. Marcus didn't just perform his duties competently. He excelled in ways that defied every assumption his teammates had made about his capabilities. His size, which had seemed like such a disadvantage, became a tactical asset as he moved through spaces and positions that would have been impossible for larger operators. When the team encountered an unexpected obstacle, a locked door that intelligence had indicated would be open, Marcus improvised a solution that showcased not just his technical skills, but his ability to think creatively under pressure. Rather than waste precious time trying to breach the heavy steel door, he identified an alternative route through a ventilation system that led directly to the target building. His teammates watched in amazement as he disappeared into a space barely large enough for a full-grown man, emerging minutes later to unlock the door from the inside. The rescue itself required split-second timing and flawless coordination. Marcus was responsible for securing the target, while his teammates provided overwatch and prepared the extraction route. When they breached the final room, they found the mock prisoner guarded by 3 role-playing enemies equipped with realistic weapons and authorized to use aggressive tactics to simulate combat conditions. In the span of 8 seconds, Marcus neutralized 2 of the guards with precision shots, while simultaneously shielding the target from potential crossfire. But it was what happened during the extraction that truly demonstrated Marcus's worth to the team. As they moved through the compound toward their exfiltration point, they encountered heavy, simulated enemy fire from multiple directions. Training ammunition filled the air around them, and the mock enemy forces pressed their attack with realistic aggression. During the chaos, Patterson took a simulated hit that would have been fatal in real combat, dropping him in an exposed position where continued enemy fire made rescue seem impossible. Without hesitation, Marcus broke from the extraction route and sprinted across 40 yards of open ground under heavy fire. His teammates watched in disbelief as he reached Patterson's position, quickly assessed the simulated wounds, and began providing immediate medical care while bullets whistled overhead. But Marcus wasn't content to simply treat Patterson's injuries. He needed to get him to safety. What followed was a display of determination and strength that nobody, including Marcus himself, knew he possessed. Despite weighing only 140 pounds, he somehow managed to lift Patterson, who weighed 190 pounds, onto his shoulders and carry him toward the extraction point. Enemy fire continued to pour down on their position, and conventional wisdom suggested that Marcus should have called for backup or found another solution. Instead, he did something that would become legendary within the team. Using his knowledge of the compound layout and his smaller profile to his advantage, Marcus navigated through a series of obstacles and defensive positions that larger operators couldn't have negotiated while carrying a wounded teammate. He moved through spaces between buildings, under structures, and around barriers that provided concealment while maintaining forward momentum toward safety. The exercise officially ended when Marcus delivered Patterson to the extraction point within the 30-minute time limit. But the real impact was just beginning. As the team gathered to debrief the mission, something had fundamentally changed in the way they looked at their newest member. Chief Rodriguez, who had designed the exercise to be nearly impossible, stood quietly for several minutes before speaking. The conversation that followed would reshape everything Marcus had experienced since joining the team. Johnson was the first to speak, describing what he had witnessed during the rescue in terms that bordered on disbelief. The Texas drawl that usually carried humor was replaced by genuine respect, as he explained how Marcus had accomplished something that conventional training suggested should have been impossible. Martinez followed with his own observations, focusing on the tactical innovations Marcus had demonstrated throughout the mission. The veteran SEAL explained that in 15 years of operations, he had rarely seen someone adapt to changing circumstances with such creativity and effectiveness. Patterson, still processing what had happened during his simulated rescue, could only shake his head and mutter that he owed Marcus his life, even if it was just an exercise. Chief Rodriguez listened to each team member's assessment before delivering his own verdict. The chief's words were measured and professional, but there was something in his tone that Marcus had never heard before: genuine respect. Rodriguez explained that the mission had been designed to test not just individual skills, but the ability to function as part of a cohesive unit under extreme pressure. Marcus had not only passed that test, he had demonstrated leadership qualities that couldn't be taught in any classroom or training facility. But the real validation came in the days that followed, as word of the exercise spread throughout the SEAL community. Other teams began asking about the small operator who had carried a teammate to safety under impossible circumstances. Training instructors started using the rescue as an example of how determination could overcome physical limitations. Within a week, Marcus had gone from being the questionable new guy to being a SEAL that others wanted to learn from. The transformation in team dynamics was immediate and profound. Where once there had been skeptical glances and whispered doubts, now there was easy camaraderie and genuine inclusion. Johnson started seeking Marcus's input on tactical planning, recognizing that his unique perspective often revealed solutions that others missed. Martinez began training with him regularly, sharing advanced techniques that were typically reserved for operators with years of experience. Perhaps most significantly, Chief Rodriguez assigned Marcus to lead several subsequent training exercises, giving him opportunities to demonstrate his leadership abilities while building confidence among his teammates. The chief had recognized something that the others were just beginning to understand. Marcus Thompson possessed qualities that couldn't be measured in inches or pounds, qualities that made him not just a capable SEAL, but an exceptional one. As the team prepared for their deployment to Afghanistan, now just 6 weeks away, Marcus found himself in a position he had never imagined possible. His teammates didn't just accept him, they genuinely respected him. More importantly, they trusted him with their lives. The ultimate expression of confidence among special operations forces, the kid who had seemed too small and quiet to belong among elite warriors, had proven that appearances could be devastatingly deceiving. 3 months into their deployment in Afghanistan's volatile Kunar province, SEAL Team 7 had established a reputation for precision and reliability that earned them the most challenging missions in the region. Marcus Thompson had not only proven himself worthy of his place on the team, he had become an integral part of their success. But it was during a routine patrol in the mountains near the Pakistan border that his true standing would be established beyond any doubt. The mission seemed straightforward enough. Intelligence had identified a high-value target, operating from a compound nestled in a valley, surrounded by rocky peaks and narrow mountain passes. The team was tasked with conducting surveillance, gathering intelligence on enemy movements, and reporting back to headquarters. It was the kind of mission that Marcus and his teammates had completed dozens of times, requiring stealth, patience, and careful observation rather than direct action. As they established their overwatch position on a ridge overlooking the target compound, Marcus noticed something that the mission briefing hadn't mentioned. The terrain around their position was far more complex than satellite imagery had indicated, with hidden ravines and unexpected obstacles that could complicate their extraction if things went wrong. His training and natural attention to detail had taught him to always have an exit strategy. And the current situation made him uneasy. Chief Rodriguez positioned the team in a defensive formation that provided excellent observation of the target while maintaining concealment from enemy forces below. Johnson and Martinez took positions with the team's precision rifles, ready to provide overwatch and long-range support if needed. Patterson and Williams established a communications post that would relay intelligence back to headquarters, while Chen prepared to document enemy activities with advanced surveillance equipment. Marcus was assigned to serve as the team's point security, responsible for watching their flanks and rear approaches, while the others focused on the target compound. It was a critical role that required constant vigilance and the ability to spot threats before they became deadly. As the youngest and least experienced member of the team, he understood that this assignment was both a show of trust and a test of his continued development as an operator. The first sign of trouble came 6 hours into the surveillance mission. Marcus detected movement on a nearby ridge that didn't match the patterns of local wildlife or civilian activity. Through his binoculars, he identified what appeared to be an enemy patrol, moving through the mountains with military precision and purpose. The patrol consisted of at least 12 fighters carrying advanced weapons and equipment that suggested they were more than just local militia. Marcus immediately alerted Chief Rodriguez through hand signals, providing detailed information about the enemy force's size, equipment, and direction of travel. The chief studied the situation through his own optics before making a decision that would save all their lives. Rather than risk compromise by attempting to reposition, the team would maintain their current position while Marcus continued to track the enemy patrol and provide early warning if they changed course toward the SEAL team's location. What Marcus observed over the next 2 hours revealed that this was no coincidental encounter. The enemy patrol was conducting a systematic search of the mountain ridge, moving from position to position with the methodical efficiency of a force that knew exactly what they were looking for. Intelligence had been compromised somehow, and the hunters had become the hunted. The situation deteriorated rapidly when a second enemy force appeared from an unexpected direction, effectively surrounding the SEAL team's position. Marcus counted at least 25 enemy fighters equipped with rockets, machine guns, and communications equipment that suggested they were coordinating with additional forces beyond visual range. The team was outnumbered by more than 4 to 1, trapped on a mountainside with limited ammunition and no immediate prospect of reinforcement. Chief Rodriguez gathered the team for a quick tactical assessment, and the options were grim. They could attempt to break contact immediately, fighting their way through superior numbers with minimal chance of success. They could call for extraction, but the nearest helicopter support was hours away, and the landing zones were all controlled by enemy forces. Or they could dig in and hope that their position was defensible enough to hold until help arrived. Marcus listened to the discussion while continuing to monitor enemy movements, and he began to see a pattern that the others had missed. The enemy forces were positioned to control the obvious escape routes, but their deployment suggested they weren't familiar with the subtle terrain features that Marcus had noticed during their insertion. There was a narrow ravine system that led down the backside of the ridge, hidden from direct observation and potentially unguarded. When Marcus presented his assessment to the team, Chief Rodriguez studied the proposed route through binoculars and tactical maps. The ravine system was treacherous, requiring the team to move single file through spaces barely wide enough for a man carrying full equipment. One mistake, one loose rock, or one moment of carelessness could send a man tumbling hundreds of feet down the mountainside. But it appeared to be their only viable option for escape. The decision to attempt the ravine extraction was unanimous, but Chief Rodriguez made it clear that success would depend entirely on Marcus's ability to navigate the treacherous route while leading 5 other operators through terrain that seemed designed to kill anyone foolish enough to attempt passage. The responsibility was enormous, and failure would likely result in the death or capture of the entire team. Marcus accepted the challenge without hesitation, understanding that this was the moment when his true worth would be measured. As the team prepared to move, each member performed final equipment checks and ensured that everything was secured to prevent noise or loss during the difficult passage ahead. The enemy forces continued to tighten their search pattern, and time was running out. The descent began in the late afternoon, with Marcus leading the way through a maze of rock formations and narrow passages that seemed to change with every step. His smaller size proved invaluable as he squeezed through spaces that would have challenged his teammates, always testing each handhold and foothold before committing his weight. Behind him, Johnson, Martinez, Patterson, Williams, and Chen followed in single file, trusting Marcus's judgment completely as they navigated terrain that would have intimidated mountain climbing specialists. Halfway down the ravine, the team encountered a section where the passage had been partially blocked by a recent rock slide. Large boulders created a maze of obstacles that required careful navigation and perfect timing to avoid triggering additional rockfalls. Marcus spent 20 minutes studying the situation before identifying a route that would allow the team to pass safely. But it required each man to move individually, while the others provided support from secure positions. As Marcus guided his teammates through the obstacle one by one, enemy forces above began to realize that their quarry had escaped the initial containment. Shouts echoed across the mountainside as search teams redirected their efforts, and the sound of helicopters suggested that additional forces were being brought into the area. The window of opportunity for escape was closing rapidly. The final section of the ravine presented the greatest challenge yet. A sheer rock face dropped nearly vertical for 40 feet, with only minimal handholds and footholds carved by centuries of erosion. Conventional climbing techniques would have been difficult enough with proper equipment. But the team was carrying full combat loads and working against time, while enemy forces searched for them above. Marcus made the descent first, testing each grip and identifying the safest route for his teammates to follow. When he reached the bottom, he established security while coaching each team member through the dangerous passage. Johnson, despite his size and strength, struggled with the narrow handholds, but Marcus's precise guidance helped him navigate safely. Martinez moved with the fluid grace of an experienced climber, while Patterson fought through the descent despite an obvious fear of heights. When Williams began his descent, fatigue and stress caused him to lose his grip 20 feet from the bottom. Marcus reacted instantly, positioning himself to break Williams's fall and cushion his impact with the rocky ground below. The collision sent both men tumbling, but Marcus absorbed most of the impact, suffering multiple cuts and a sprained wrist, while ensuring that Williams escaped serious injury. Chief Rodriguez was the last to descend, and by the time he reached the bottom, enemy voices could be heard directly above their previous position. The team had escaped the immediate trap, but they still faced a dangerous journey through enemy-controlled territory to reach their extraction point several miles away. Marcus, despite his injuries from breaking Williams's fall, insisted on maintaining his position as point man for the remainder of the journey. The extraction that followed became the stuff of legend within the special operations community. Marcus led the team through a 12-hour movement across hostile territory, navigating by memory and instinct through terrain that seemed designed to confuse and disorient. He avoided enemy patrols, identified safe crossing points over rivers and ravines, and maintained perfect noise discipline while keeping the team together and moving towards safety. When they finally reached the extraction landing zone at dawn, Chief Rodriguez performed the most difficult task a military leader ever faces: writing the after-action report that would determine how Marcus's performance was officially recognized. The chief's words were carefully chosen and professionally measured, but they painted a picture of leadership, courage, and tactical brilliance that left no doubt about Marcus Thompson's true standing as a Navy SEAL. The impact of that mission extended far beyond the immediate team. Word of Marcus's performance spread throughout the special operations community, carried by the 5 men whose lives he had saved through his navigation skills, tactical awareness, and willingness to sacrifice his own safety for theirs. Johnson, Martinez, Patterson, Williams, and Chen became his most vocal advocates, ensuring that anyone who questioned Marcus's capabilities heard the full story of what had happened in the mountains of Afghanistan. When the team returned to Coronado 6 months later, Marcus found that his reputation had preceded him. Training instructors sought his input on mountaineering and small unit tactics. Other SEAL teams requested his participation in advanced exercises. Most significantly, Chief Rodriguez recommended him for accelerated promotion and assignment to an advanced training position where he could share his expertise with new operators. The formal recognition came in the form of medals and commendations. But the real validation was something much more meaningful. Marcus Thompson had earned the complete respect and trust of 5 elite warriors who had seen him prove himself under the most demanding circumstances imaginable. They had witnessed his courage, his competence, and his character, and they made sure that everyone else understood exactly what kind of man he truly was. In the close-knit world of naval special warfare, reputation is everything, and Marcus had earned a reputation that would follow him throughout his career. He was no longer the small, quiet kid who had struggled to prove himself worthy of the trident. He was a Navy SEAL whose true standing was beyond question, protected by 5 brothers who would never let anyone forget what they had witnessed in the mountains of Afghanistan.